Welcome back to the European Parliament in Brussels for the second part of Talking Europe. My guest today is Mikołaj Dowgielewicz, Poland's European Affairs Minister. As such, Mr. Dowgielewicz is responsible for the rotating presidency of the EU. This week, his country, Poland, made a dramatic appeal in Berlin for Germany to show more leadership in the current Eurozone crisis. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Barack Obama, the US president, urged Europeans to take decisive steps, warning Europe could unleash a global financial tsunami. One thing is sure, the clock is ticking as Europe is caught in a race to save the single currency. Mr. Dowgielewicz, welcome.
Welcome.
This week, Radosław Sikorski, your colleague and Foreign Minister of Poland, said, and I'm quoting him because these are very strong words, "I will be the first Polish Foreign Minister in history to say so, but here it is. I fear German power less than I'm beginning to fear German inactivity." This was a crystal clear message for Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor. What do you think Angela Merkel should do at this stage of the crisis?
I think when we have the European Council on the 9th of December, we need to find a lasting solution to the Eurozone crisis. We cannot have a summit every month and always be behind the financial market. So I think everybody must show flexibility. We need to find formulas to reassure the markets and citizens that we are bringing lasting stability and more confidence to the euro, which will imply, of course, more discipline, more consolidation of public finances all across the Eurozone. But at the same time, we also have to be flexible when it comes to how to ensure that markets believe that we have full determination to save and protect the euro. So that, of course, is a discussion on the Eurobonds, but this is also a discussion on the role of the EFSF and the European Central Bank.
You say flexibility. Reading what your colleague in the government says, clearly Poland thinks that Germany is not flexible enough.
Well, I think that, of course, the appeal was made in Berlin, so it was made, first of all, to the German audience. So it's logical that it was received in such a way. But I think it's everybody who has to show flexibility. If you look at the discussions among the Eurozone member states, there are also those who question some of the principles of what the Commission is now proposing in terms of bigger transparency and bigger discipline. They also need to show flexibility. So the appeal from the Polish presidency is very simple. Do everything we can to save the euro. There's no time for half-baked solutions. There's no time for small steps. It's the moment when we have to make a decisive step to progress with economic and political integration in the European Union. That's the only way to save the euro.
All eyes these days are on Germany. It is, of course, the most powerful Eurozone member, the wealthiest as well. Will history remember Angela Merkel as the leader who abandoned the euro?
Look, I think that Angela Merkel has shown European leadership on a number of occasions. I remember her from the budget negotiations of the current financial framework. I remember her from other occasions where she has shown to be a statesman of European on a European scale, and I have no doubt that she will also show full responsibility and reliability in the current circumstances. But I also have to make a comment. I don't think this is right to focus so much on personalities and say this is responsibility of Angela Merkel or this or other leader. I think this is a collective responsibility of all the leaders of the member states because we all have to find agreement to go forward. And secondly, it's also collective responsibility of the institutions, European Parliament, Commission, President of European Council. So we should not personalize all this too much because it's a dangerous path. It's not really going to give us any real answers.
You say at the forthcoming summit there will need to be clear-cut answers that will calm the markets. Very concretely, what do you hope to see emerging from this summit?
Well, I hope that we will be able to reassure the markets concerning our commitment to increase discipline and transparency of the public finances in the member states, especially the Eurozone member states. Secondly, I believe we need to present a credible way to reassure everybody that we are there to defend the euro. And here, this is a discussion about the role of the central bank or the EFSF and possibly other models of how to show our determination.
France has said already that it would like the central bank, the European Central Bank, to act as a lender of last resort, a bit like the US Federal Reserve. Is that your view as well?
That is an option, certainly. I don't want to say which option is best today. I think I want to stay in the role of the presidency to be able to be neutral on that. But I think this is one of the options, certainly. It should be considered. What I think we will have is a sort of package deal. So you may have more flexibility from countries like Germany or Netherlands or Finland, but then I think you will also need to reassure them as countries with the highest rating in the Eurozone that the others will deliver on the structural reforms, on the fiscal discipline, and that obligations will be taken seriously. Because the one element, and this was also mentioned by Minister Sikorski, is that the Stability and Growth Pact has been broken 60 times. So,
including by France and Germany.
Of course, on a number of occasions. So we need to get serious about the rules we have set for the euro, and they must be observed. If the rules are not observed, this is not a sort of a surprise that the markets don't believe us.
And precisely Germany, now France as well, are saying to achieve budgetary discipline, what you need is to change the treaties. Potentially, you need to introduce sanctions to punish budget sinners. Is this feasible, to change the treaties, knowing that it took us so long to ratify the Lisbon Treaty?
This is going to be a difficult process if we decide to change the treaties, but I think we may take such a decision. I don't exclude such a possibility. But let's see first what the member states think. I will chair the discussion of the General Affairs Council on the 5th of December about that, preparing the European Council. I want to see myself what will be the opinions of the member states. I think that one has to be open-minded about it, and it is an option to revise the treaties. If we do that, then of course we should revise the treaties on the basis of the rules we have. We shouldn't look for some new ways to create new institutions, new treaties, but we should be basically looking for solutions on the basis of the Treaty of Lisbon, that there could be a revision of the Treaty of Lisbon. But at the same time, I think treaty revision is not going to be the answer for the markets for tomorrow. The treaty revision is possibly going to bring solutions for the long term, but not to resolve the immediate debt and confidence crisis. For that, we need to show a lot of commitment to discipline. We need to show credibility in the economic policy. And what is crucial here is very serious reform effort undertaken by a number of Eurozone member states. And here I think Italy is especially a country to be watched, Spain as well. And I hope that with new governments, those countries will deliver serious reform effort.
Among the potential solutions that would appease the markets, you mentioned increasing the role of the European Central Bank. You mentioned the EFSF, that's the bailout fund. There's also talk of creating Eurobonds, jointly guaranteed Eurozone bonds. I know your country is not in the Eurozone, but as a chair of the presidency, do you think this could impress the markets?
Well, the European Commission presented 3 ideas for how the Eurobonds will function. I think this issue will be on the table. I think that this has to be discussed with open mind. I think everybody understands now, including those most skeptical about the Eurobonds, that the situation is different than it was 6 months ago or a year ago, and we need to do everything to convince the markets that we are serious to defend the euro. I don't exclude such a possibility that this proposal will be agreed, but I'm sure that it would be only agreed if it's a bigger package that would also involve.
There will be a trade-off with Germany, ideally.
I think there would be. There would be also a much bigger effort needed and much bigger integration needed to show that the markets would be able to believe that the euro is a project that has been reinvigorated, that is very stable, because it is based on common rules that we all commit to observe.
Mr. Minister, your country currently holds the rotating presidency of the EU, a presidency somehow overshadowed by the Franco-German couple, which some have dubbed Mercozy, Merkel and Sarkozy. Recently, though, the couple welcomed a newcomer. You mentioned his name earlier. It's, of course, the new Prime Minister of Italy, Mario Monti. Let's watch our report.
She finally warmed up to the idea of a kiss on the cheek, a Gallic greeting which has become a ritual between President Nicolas Sarkozy and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. This meeting took place in Strasbourg. A few minutes later, Sarkozy welcomed the new Italian Prime Minister, Mario Monti, something of a novelty in the EU. Over the past months, there were only two people during these meetings, Merkel and Sarkozy, a duo sometimes nicknamed Mercozy. Together, they worked to try and get Europe's economy back on track. But the duo's action was not always welcomed in Italy, so Monti made it clear that he wanted to defend all of Europe's interests.
My
objective at these sorts of meetings will always be to reinforce the strength of the European community.
Within this trio, Monti might work as a mediator as tension rises between the French and German leaders. Their latest argument, the European Central Bank's role. Paris wants to give more power to the ECB, allowing it to lend money as a last resort, a plan strongly opposed by Berlin, and with its healthier economy, Germany has the clout to impose its view.
I repeat again what the French president has said. The central bank is independent.
Sarkozy and Merkel might not agree on everything, but officially they still work together.
So, do we simply agree automatically? Do we say, oh, I agree, and great, you agree too, and carry on like that? No, that's not how it happens. I would like it if it did, but Mrs. Merkel explains to me, sometimes at length, her concerns. I explain mine to her. And then, taking into account the weight of history between our two countries, we come to an agreement.
With such strong-willed leaders, it might not be easy for Monti to exist within the trio. As soon as the Strasbourg summit was over, Germany and France set out to strengthen Europe's Stability Pact, and Italy was not invited.
Our report there on the Franco-German couple with a new addition, Italy. Mr. Dovgielewicz, do you sometimes resent? You said earlier that we shouldn't talk about the personification of Europe, but when you look at this, it always seems to be Sarkozy and Merkel deciding on the side and then imposing their views on the rest of Europe.
Well, I think the real problem is if they meet and without result, and then the markets are disappointed, and it has a direct bearing on what is happening in the markets. Frankly speaking, I'm not afraid or I'm not worried about any meetings of any leaders. I think that Mario Monti is certainly a very good news for the euro, for Italy, for the European Union. Somebody so much respected, so much attached to the European ideas, so competent, is certainly going to be good news for the discussion in the European Council.
Poland is not a member of the Eurozone. Would you still be willing to join one day?
Yes, of course we have an intention, not to mention a legal obligation, but we have an intention to join the euro once the euro is prepared to admit new members, and once we fulfill the criteria, notably the deficit criterion, and we hope that by the end of next year we will be at the stage when we will go below the 3% deficit threshold. I think that Poland is one of those countries that certainly sees membership in the Eurozone as our destination.
One of the achievements of the Polish presidency is, of course, the membership of Croatia. Croatia will sign its membership treaty on the 9th. That's during next week's summit. However, though, some say there is some kind of enlargement fatigue. Do you fear that Croatia could be the last country to join the club?
I don't think so. Well, don't forget that there are some well-prepared countries in the pipeline. Don't forget Iceland, for example. But we also committed to give the membership perspective to the Western Balkan countries. I hope that Croatia will set a good example to the region. I think it is vitally important for the European Union that despite the current crisis we show open door policy, because it's a sign of optimism also for ourselves. It shows that the European project is alive and that people want to enter it. So I think this is a reason for optimism, but it should also be encouragement for the others.
One of the other priorities is strengthening Europe's Eastern Partnership. Now, in neighboring Ukraine, former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko is behind bars following what many have called a political trial. Have you done enough? Has Europe done enough? Has Europe put enough pressure on Yanukovych, the president, to make sure that this didn't happen?
Well, Poland and Polish presidency has done quite a lot to explain to the Ukrainian leadership the potential consequences of the Tymoshenko trial and also the political situation in Ukraine on the association agreement with the EU. I think that there is something positive, which is the fact that Ukraine basically concluded the talks on the free trade agreement with the EU, and the association agreement is basically ready as well for ratification. But there are many concerns in the member states of the EU with the Tymoshenko trial, with other political events, and I think that the EU, while being fully committed to this enhanced relationship with Ukraine, will also watch very carefully what is going on and will assess as events develop.
Very briefly, is current President Viktor Yanukovych still a man worth doing business with?
Well, Viktor Yanukovych is a democratically elected president of Ukraine. He has a democratic mandate, so obviously he's a partner for the European Union.
Nikolai Dovgielewicz, Polish European Affairs Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching this edition of Talking Europe. Now, as I said earlier, our European team will travel again to Brussels next week to bring you all the latest from Thursday's and Friday's EU summit, a summit which has already been hailed as the summit of the last chance. So please stay with us on France 24 from all of us here in Brussels. Goodbye.